Hello, Chargers. This is Coach Oliver once again. It's the rest day of the Tata Steel Masters 2022. So for today, we'll be discussing one of my games in 2019 Sharjah Masters against Grandmaster Maxim Matlakov. He's a strong Russian Grandmaster. He won the European Chess Championship in 2017. And he used to be a second for Peter Zvidler, the candidates from 2013 to 2016. All right, let's go through the game. Okay, the first move here was actually a surprise because in classical games, I don't normally play e4. Classical games, I would go for knight f3, d4, or c4, or sometimes a Larsen with b3. I think this is the first time I played e4 for quite some time. So this is a bit of a surprise for my opponent. Okay, he played c5, knight f3. Okay, d6. He's going for his pet line, the knight dwarf. d4 takes. Now instead of taking with a knight, on this very day, I was like, okay, I capture with my queen. The night before the game, I was like, okay, I'm ready to capture with the queen to just make it just a simple game, and I don't want to go into some complicated knight or lines. So he went to knight c6, just bishop b5, e6, takes the knight, takes and c4. Okay, we have the bind of the c4 pawn and the e4 pawn on the d5 square. He went for e5, just queen to d3. Knight e7, okay, an interesting maneuver for the knight here. Instead of knight f6, he went for knight e7. Okay, the main point probably is just he wants to go for f5 and control the middle with d5. So I castled first, okay. King safety first, see what happens. But he went for knight g6. Okay, knight g6 of course is to free that square for the bishop and castles. Knight c3, bishop e7, knight e2. All right, the point of knight e2 is to take away that f5 square, because if you look at this, if let's say I play rook to d1, for example, he is trying to castle and then he will get f5. Yeah, I didn't want him to play f5, so anticipation. So when I play knight e2, he castled, I go knight g3, stopping f5. But he sacrificed the central pawn. It takes to get this f5 square. Okay, I have this isolated queen pawn, but also now a pass pawn on d5. He has f5, now threatening a double attack on my queen and my knight on d3. So I play queen c4, and the plan is a double attack. Sorry, I discovered attack. Okay, I discovered attack on d6. He went for king h8, okay, because there was a discovered attack on the g8 king. Rook e1, hitting the pawn on e5. Of course, I force him to push because I want my knight to be centralized. I want my knight to be active. And if, let's say, he protects it with bishop to d6, I would go for bishop d5. Yes. Now checking whether he puts his queen on e8 or b6. He might go for b6 here. Okay, then I would exchange. Since I cannot use my knight somewhere, I would just exchange it with the other knight. Yeah. Takes, and then queen takes h4. Then I would go for bishop e7 and help this pawn up and rolling. Okay, so I played rook e1. He played e4. Now I have knight e4 and also threatening knight to c6. But this square is also free for his knight. Activates his knight on e5. So knight e5, queen to b3. Played knight e3. It's actually a strong outpost now on d3 with the protection of the pawn on e4. Played knight c6 first, an intermediate move on the queen. He played queen d7, maybe not the best square for the queen. At least queen d7 much better, I guess. Because with queen d6, it allows me to play bishop d2, because now he cannot capture my rook on e1. I have bishop b4, right? A skewer on the bishop on e7, and the knight is still under attack by the rook on a1. So after bishop d2, he went for bishop h4. Okay, rook to e3. This is a very tricky move, rook to e3. Okay, the main point of rook e3 is, of course, to capture the knight, and now I have a skewer on the rook on f8. And then he went for queen g6. Okay, a normal reaction moving away from this line, yeah, it was a normal reaction. But again, this unexpected double attack. Sometimes there's a blind side, yeah. It's not easy to check this out because the bishop is actually far from here. Rook is also far from there, yeah. And then he was surprised when I captured the knight in d3. Because now if he takes, for example, now I have a double attack on the rook and that bishop on h4. Unfortunately, it's already losing for black. So he tried to complicate with f4. Okay, give back the piece, knight takes e4, one pawn up, captured my knight, queen b4. When you're up a pawn, when you're up a piece, simplify. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I have a pass pawn, the knight is protecting that square, the promotion square, so I should be all right here. He played queen f5, protecting the rook on f8, rook f3. Okay, a triple attack on that pawn on f4. Played bishop to g5, h4. Not only is this pawn attacking the bishop on g5, but at least my king is safe. Yeah, so that's also an extra move for me. He went for bishop h6, comparing my king to his king. My king is safe. Now he has some back rank issues right here. Okay, the bishop is blocking the way of the pawn. Okay, so bishop c3. Now this is a strong bishop now with an x-ray on the king. That's protected by a pawn. That's a stable bishop on c3. Okay, he played rook e8, queen to d6. The main point, of course, with the pin on the king, I can capture the bishop on h6. Yeah, queen h5, protecting his bishop and also attacking my pawn on h4. Now I played queen to c7. All right, this is what we call a transformation of the advantage. Earlier, I wanted to help my pawn to promote, but now the pressure on g7 is better now this time. Yeah. So with queen on g7, with bishop on g7, when he captured, so I gave up my central pass pawn, but at the same time, I will give more pressure on that g7 square, which is more important because it is on the king. Yep. So rook takes f4. The bishop couldn't take that rook because the bishop is also protecting the g7 square. I have mate on g7, right? Okay, normal developing move, bishop e6, rook to d4, extra tempo on the queen, because now he has rook c8 and attacking my knight with the queen, yes, so I have to attack this queen first. He went back to h5, a4. Okay, the main reason why I played a4 is that before I play my rook somewhere, at least the bishop cannot take the pawn. Yes, trying to be greedy a little bit, yeah. Okay, the main thing is that if my attack on g7 doesn't work, then I'm gonna use my extra pawns. Yeah. It's just using my extra pawns. If my attack won't work, I will just try to simplify and use my extra pawns. Rook f8, queen g3. Still maintaining the threat, but now a stable square on g3. Rook e8, rook e1. Okay, connection to the bishop. The attack still on g7. Okay, he played bishop f5, knight e7. Knight also helps, yeah. Invite everyone to the party. Knight on e7. He played bishop c2. As I've said, if my attack won't work, I'll have to keep my pawns. I have this majority on the queen side. I also have majority on the king side, so I'm 2 pawns up. So if anything goes wrong, just exchange the pieces and just keep your pawns. And of course, you have a winning endgame. He played queen f7, rook on the seventh rank. Right? Bishop attacks my rook. Rook a7 first, attacking the pawn on a6. He protected it at bishop e5. Take away that e4 square so that no bishop f4. Right? He played rook a8, rook c7. Okay, the connection of the queen to the rook, the bishop to g7, and that rook c7 is also attacking the g7 pawn. He played queen a2, and my last move, knight f5. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the opponent only has 2 defenders. I have 4. So overloading on the g7 square. So even if he, let's say he plays something else, like, okay, let's say for example he plays rook f7, I also have knight takes h6, exploiting the pin, because this is just a nice coordination of the queen on the rook. Yeah, it's important that your pieces are connected and are in harmony. Yeah, helping each other out. It wasn't possible to go for, okay, he has this move, queen b1. I would just go king h2. Because again, he takes the rook on e4, no problem, because I have 4 pieces there, right? Bishop takes g7, check. If he moves his king to g8, there's knight takes h6 is mate. And if he captures that bishop on g7, I have queen g7 mate. Right? So again, when your pieces are in harmony, when pieces are in good coordination, you always have a better chance of winning. Whether you play a stronger player or anyone, as long as you know where to put your pieces, you always have a chance. You always give yourself a chance. All right. I hope you like our presentation for today. And the next round of Tata Steel Masters 2022 will resume tomorrow. It's 5 p.m. Dubai time and it's 9 p.m. Manila time. I will see you for the highlights of that round. This is Coach Oliver signing off. Bye bye.